Measure: The Multidimensional and Human-Centered Approach to Poverty by Ben, Daniel, and Landon. For coming up with our thesis, we wanted to make the point that we were going to incorporate various aspects from established poverty measurement tools. We wanted to accurately be able to consider someone's quality of life, which some tools don't do best, and we wanted to do that in a way that respects people's dignity. So, our thesis is, we should define poverty using a combination of aspects from different established tools in a way that respects people's dignity and accurately depicts people's quality of life.
The SPM measures poverty by taking 83% of the median FCSU, or food, clothing, shelter, and utilities spending, and multiplying it by 1.2. These values are adjusted for the cost of housing by region, which gives a good idea of how people are doing in different places. The SPM takes into account near cash and in-kind benefits like SNAP and refundable tax credits, as well as non-discretionary expenses that are subtracted from income, giving a more realistic metric of people's actual purchasing power. When developing our poverty measure index, we wanted to incorporate this measurement tool because we thought it was the best at determining people's level of poverty based on the amount of money they have after all expenses and benefits are taken into account. One problem we ran into with the SPM is that it only works in wealthy countries where the median FCSU spending is adequate and in countries with strong social programs. The MPI breaks down poverty into three categories: health, education, and standard of living. If one of the three categories is not met, then the individual is considered to be in poverty. An individual is also considered to be in poverty if any combination of resources is not met, adding up to 1/3. We believe that this approach has the best threshold for how detailed the measure is and how many things it takes into account that are vital for human dignity and equality. The threshold for our own poverty measure is heavily based on the MPI because we believe that the MPI most accurately evaluates the importance of what people have and how much they can go without.
The Martinez household includes a single mother, Maria, and her two children, and they live in Los Angeles, California. Maria makes $30,000 a year. Their housing is subsidized public housing, and they have Medicaid coverage. Maria completed high school, and her kids go to public school. Their utilities are covered by government energy assistance programs, and they receive SNAP benefits or food stamps. The supplemental poverty measure focuses on income in relation to needs while factoring in local costs and government aid. In relation to the SPM, the Martinez household is below the threshold despite government assistance because they live in Los Angeles, which is a high-cost area. Therefore, the family is labeled as experiencing poverty. On the other hand, the multidimensional poverty index focuses on poverty across multiple dimensions like education, health, and standard of living rather than just income. When looking at the Martinez household, Maria is educated and the children are enrolled in school. Therefore, their education is not deprived. They have health care access provided by Medicaid, and their health care is not deprived. Their living standards include electricity, clean water, sanitation, public housing, and clean cooking fuel. Therefore, their living standards are not deprived. Under the MPI, the household is not considered multidimensionally poor because they don't experience multiple simultaneous deprivations. In conclusion, the poverty tools define the household differently because the SPM focuses on economic struggles due to income and cost of living, while the MPI focuses on deprivations in key areas of life.
Nussbaum's capabilities approach creates a list of central capabilities that a person must have to be considered not to be in poverty. If only one of the capabilities in the list is not present, then the individual is considered to be in poverty. Nussbaum's list does a good job of really understanding how people are doing, not just physically but mentally as well. Nussbaum's list takes into account freedom, security, education, and other vital factors to a person's dignity that are not captured by other methods. Nussbaum's capabilities approach is the best way to understand how people are actually doing. Although in order to be used at a large scale, functionings would have to be considered. We integrated the capabilities approach into our own method to make our method better account for what people are actually able to do.
Richter believed that the poorest people today live better than all but the richest people 100 years ago, especially in the United States. There is truth to Richter's argument in the sense that they have access to higher quality healthcare, amenities, and possibly education. However, this is only true due to how common amenities such as refrigerators, televisions, and AC have become, as well as the scientific advancements made over the last century. People still struggle to afford their basic needs like food, water, shelter, and clothes. Richter argues that because poor people in the US often have similar basic household items as average families in the United States, that they are not in poverty. Even though they have access to more technology and resources than those of 100 years ago, it doesn't mean that they have a better quality of life. Access to resources is an important part of poverty, but it doesn't give the full picture. In the measurement of poverty, the quality access to and how those resources are acquired are not considered. For example, a family could have a refrigerator that they don't use and barely works, but in Richter's view, they have a refrigerator, so they're not in poverty. Overall, knowing what resources someone has access to is not a sufficient measure of poverty and does not take dignity into account. Our approach uses a combination of the SPM measurement tool and the capabilities approach, which we are measuring with the MPI tool. When creating our solution, we wanted it to account for people's motivation to fulfill their capabilities. We also wanted to be measured by updated information on regional cost of living and to account for in-kind and near-cash benefits and non-discretionary expenses. Including both of these approaches allow us to account for the possibility of income not correlating to capabilities or vice versa.
One example of this conflicting situation would be the following. A 27-year-old woman living in a rural town has income below the poverty threshold. Her living situation consists of the following. She owns her home, lives with extended family, receives meals, transportation, and receives health care assistance from her family. She also receives government assistance such as Medicaid and SNAP. For her daily life, she gardens, participates in church and community events, and has a healthy social life. According to the SPM, Maria is in poverty because her cash income is under the threshold even after accounting for non-cash benefits. However, according to the capabilities approach, Maria is not in poverty because she has the ability to live a dignified, healthy, and social life. She has access to healthcare, food, and security. Lastly, her freedoms and functionings are all intact.
Our approach uses a combination of the SPM measurement tool and the capabilities approach, which we are measuring with the MPI tool. When creating our solution, we wanted it to account for people's motivation to fulfill their capabilities. We also wanted to be measured by updated information on regional cost of living and to account for in-kind and near-cash benefits and non-discretionary expenses. Including both of these approaches allow us to account for the possibility of income not correlating to capabilities or vice versa. When we look at the possible problems with our tool, it might be easy to say that measuring capabilities through the MPI is difficult, that the data would be hard to get, given that people's deficiencies are different everywhere and that needs differ from person to person. However, we can address this issue by getting information through polls and surveys in order to determine what people need. There is no way to individually help every single person and give them exactly what they are lacking. But by looking at the general needs of a community as a whole, we can give them the specific resources they need for an improved quality of life. Another issue is that this measurement tool would be difficult to use internationally, given that governments have different forms of aid and that there are less developed countries that would have trouble collecting data. If we applied this tool internationally, it would look different depending on each country. Another argument for using the regional median income is that in some areas the median income might not be sufficient to sustain you or your family's basic human necessities. The family's income might be well over the median FCSU spending, but it is still not sufficient to maintain the family's well-being. To combat this issue, we would have to adjust the threshold by raising or lowering what we multiply the median spending by to provide an accurate measure of quality of life from region to region. Here is our works cited page. We used AI to help us create a title for this presentation. We also used it to help us come up with some examples that reflect our solution. Here we use it again to demonstrate how our solution works.